Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. So, let's kick things off with a question to get you thinking. So, today's guest works with over 25% of America's largest private fleets. But according to a recent survey, what percentage of America's freight by weight is transported by trucking fleets? Well, it's got to be high. I'm trying to weigh up in my head how it might compare to ocean. But what do you think? Well, let us know your guesses over on social and keep listening because I'll let you know at the end of the show. So today I'm joined by a brand that is part of a group of companies with an expansive industrial real estate portfolio operating over 10 million square feet of indoor and outdoor logistics terminal space. And operating since 1998, they're a one-stop shop for large private fleets. And who is that? Well, it's TSG Fleet. Now, TSG, part of the Transportation Services Group of companies, is a leader in outdoor industrial storage for Southern California and North Texas. And as a full service center for local, regional, and national private fleets and intermodal carriers, TSG also provides maintenance and repair to dry vans, containers, chassis, refrigerated trailers, and straight truck vans. And it's Trace Haggard, founder and CEO at TSG Fleet, that is joining me for the show today. Now, Trace is an accomplished entrepreneur with a diverse portfolio spanning multiple industries, but he brings the same approach across all of his portfolio. His business philosophy centers on creating employee-centric companies that uphold their commitments to customers, ensuring excellence and reliability in every venture. And I love to hear that. So today we're going to be talking all about his founder journey, about TSG and what they do, the current landscape of trucking, and the incredible benefits that TSG are delivering to customers by providing a range of much needed solutions all under one roof. Wow. Well, welcome to the show, Trace.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's great to see you again today. I'm just thinking about that question the whole time with the intro. It's like that's mind racking, impressive. I can't wait to
I
hear the answer.
I know, and we're gonna share the answer at the end of the show. So I'm happy to have you here. I mean, I love chatting to fellow entrepreneurs, and you have a really interesting history. I'm intrigued to hear how you've leveraged that with TSG because you consolidated all of these fragmented services, and that is really what so many sectors across supply chain have been desperately in need of. So I can't wait to dive in a little bit deeper and find out more. So let's start by talking about you, because
Awesome.
you're an entrepreneur with business across multiple industries. So tell us about your background, your experience, and how you came to co-found TSG Fleet.
It's been a windy journey, to say the least. I grew up in Central California in an agricultural family,
Yeah.
generational agricultural family. My father's father, his father, mostly cotton farmers. I wanted to get out of, off the farm, so to speak. So I went down to San Diego for college, and
Never
you know, I
left, right? Because San Diego is my favorite place. I couldn't believe anybody leaves San
I
Diego.
came back, so I'm close again, and I live in South Orange County, California, so I'm close to San Diego still.
Yeah.
Um, and then just by coincidence, I did an internship for 3PL while I was before my last year at University of San Diego. And I really enjoyed it. I had all intentions of going to law school, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And when I went back to school, I was studying for the LSAT, and the company, International Transport Logistics, the general manager called and asked if I would be interested in coming back for a job. And that sounded a lot better than law school. And thought maybe, let's just take a break and go enjoy that life there in Florida. I'd never really been to Florida. And then within 6 weeks of being there, they shipped me off to Puerto Rico to
Wow.
yes, to open up their San Juan office. I mean, they were asset-based
Mhm.
MVOCC, and they were shipping refrigerated containers to and from the mainland down to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and
Wow.
a lot of the U.S. flagged vessels that run that route. And they just, they'd pile up containers down there, and they couldn't get them back, and they didn't really have any staff on the island. So They asked if I spoke Spanish, si senor, and away I went. And 3 years later, I decided that I really liked, business and wanted to know a lot more about it. But I also wanted to see more of the world. So I left and I went and did my MBA in Madrid, Spain. Uh,
Wow.
which interesting
Nice.
fact, I need to say this is where I met my wife. So we went to the same school,
Yeah.
and she's from Colombia. And then I brought her back with me, and we went back to that company and lived in Florida again. And I managed their US Transcom contract. At the time, we were moving MRAPs all around the world, and they were rewarded the contract for that. And I got to do some really cool stuff with that job. And about a year and a half into that, I was talking to a friend, and we kind of wanted to get back to California because we didn't have a lot of family in Florida. And he knew about a trailer on flat car company, Alliance Shippers, and they needed someone to, manage their fleet in North America. And I kind of had the experience on the international side with the refrigerated business. And so then um, I got I got out to California and realized that, it was a whole new landscape. Domestic intermodal is a lot different than the steamship side of things from a logistical
Hmm.
standpoint.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was exciting. And about 6 years into that job, I kept asking for a raise and they kept saying no. So I went to my boss and I said, you know what? You know, much different than it is right now today in the industry. At that point, capacity was really tight. I mean, they couldn't get loads delivered because they didn't have enough local drayage. And I said, hey, how about I go out, buy 2 trucks? I'll put them on with us, and that'll be my raise, the
Right.
extra income, but I want you to know that's what I want to do. And he agreed. And so it took
Huh.
off. And in less than a year, we had nearly 20 trucks. And we
Wow.
we we went out to dinner one night. He said, "It's you got to make a decision. You either got to
Hmm.
stay or go, or find someone else to take over the trucking company." And that's when I took the leap, right?
Hmm.
And so that was the motor carrier company that I own. And then I don't know, you might have had this similar experience. You start something, right, as an entrepreneur, and you're excited about it. Everything's going great, and then one day you come in and you're like, "This isn't it. Like, I can't believe it. There's got to be
How
something
many
more to
more
this." Like,
things can I do?
exactly. And I got a call from a customer, not Alliance Shippers. They're still a customer today. Another refrigerated intermodal carrier, and they asked, if we could do more maintenance and repair for them because they weren't happy with their current provider in Southern California, and that part of the business was under my direction at my old job. And I said, sure, we'll figure it out. And so we hired some guys to do the M&R because, as you know, a lot of the all of the intermodal business is unmanned, right? So
Right.
you can't have refrigerated units going on its next journey without some kind of pre-trip and all the things that go along with
Right.
that. So we set up a very small terminal. It was about 2 acres. And it's funny because we were doing it for that intermodal carrier, and we moved the trucking company there. And that's when TSG was born. TSG
Amazing.
Fleet Services was born. They all
Yeah.
had different names at one point, and now we've just kind of tried to get them all into the same brand.
Yeah.
Um, and this same customer, they're like, "Hey, the highway division wants to use your facility as our SoCal drop yard." And I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. And it was Mother's Day. I know exactly where I was at, my wife's favorite spot, Laguna Beach. And I got a call, and there was a driver at the gate. And at that time, we weren't 24/7. We had a
Right.
little shop on a few acres. And the driver somehow got my cell phone. He's like, hey, we're supposed to be using this new drop yard, and I'm here, and no one's answering the phone. I'm like, I am, I'm the one. I'm answering the phone.
Welcome to
Um,
entrepreneurship.
And then from that day forward, we were 24/7. And as their
Wow.
fleet grew and other fleets asked for the same services, we grew, and the rest is
Amazing.
history. And now we've had several sites in Southern California, and one new site in Texas, and looking for others. So
Awesome.
that's, yeah,
I
that's,
I love hearing a founder story. And one of the things that I want to note for the audience from your story is if you're looking for A pay rise.
Mhm.
There are other ways to do it apparently because you can just offer to go sort of start your own division and that will be your pay rise. So definitely something to note. So you've talked to us about how it got started and what led to that. Can you talk to us a little bit about TSG? Like you're a part of a group of companies, I think. So tell us who you are, what you do, how do you help your customers?
Uh, Yes, so TSG is, it's a bunch of companies that I own. That, like I kind of just explained, they all kind of started because, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Sure,
Right.
sure, we'll figure it out, and we've turned them into businesses. What I try and do from my standpoint is tie it all together strategically. Our niche is, when I first left the steamship side, I went into domestic intermodal and I made amazing contacts in that network, and that network has helped build TSG into what it is today. Some of those people are, from the railroads and other service providers and other trucking companies, even competitors. I mean, some of my best mentors are competitors, and they're
Right.
just, it's a very tight network. And I think that allows you to grow into different areas, like what we do in the domestic intermodal network. So we do local drayage, we do parking, we do terminal management, maintenance and repair. And we just try and keep ourselves within almost a cost-free distance from the intermodal hubs.
Okay.
That way we kind of limit the cost. And fortunately, if you're within those intermodal hubs, they're usually around a highway divisions corridor, right? They're daily routing.
Mhm.
And so that attracts the highway fleets, and a lot of the highway fleets now have intermodal fleets, and it just all ties together. And while they're here, we can do, their pre-trips. We can help the drivers out with things related to their trucks, just small stuff that you would go waste time at a fuel stop or
Right.
those type of things.
That's amazing. Now, as I understand it, you work with over 25% of America's largest private fleets, which really is incredible. So, do you exclusively work with large and private fleets? Do you have an ideal client? Like, if I was listening to this, who would I need to be to pick up the phone and call you?
Yes, I think fleet's the key word. So more than one.
Okay.
In the beginning, and still to today, certain terminals, we still have people that have been with us since the beginning and they have two or three trucks, but for the most, or trailers or whatever. For the most part, though, we're dealing with the larger fleets, that have hundreds and thousands of units, mostly thousands, because then they get in a situation where they have more units, whether it's a container or a trailer in locations, than they have drivers. And so we can support them with our drivers or let it sit here till their other driver shows up to do the pickup or the delivery. And then more importantly is I prefer relationship-based customers. I've
Okay.
been very fortunate for, my time in the industry that created great relationships. And I mean that in terms of a relationship customer, when things happen strategically, or even when economics aren't working out, you can sit down and have a discussion and,
Mhm.
accomplish something to get through it. Transactional customers come and go. We have those too. I usually see them from a mile away. They're always asking about cost, right? That's the first
Right.
thing. How much does it cost? You know, how much can you do? Can you do it for less? And so when capacity gets tight, they really want to get into our terminals, and it's difficult because the customers we have long-term relationships with, they
Right.
stay here for the long term. And
Mhm.
so we try and fit them in. But yeah, I like to focus on the relationship instead of just, transactional business.
Well, and that's kind of what this industry is built on, right? It's built on relationships, whether you're in your part of supply chain, whether you're in procurement, whether you're in sourcing, whether you're in logistics. It really is about relationships. And you're kind of seeing it more and more now because we're back to in-person conferences and things like that. And business is really being done through those relationships. But also, you speak the truth around the relationships too. And I want to point that out to the audience is if you are focused on price, you're focused on that sort of transaction, it might help you in the moment today. But when things shift, when things change, you really want to have those solid relationships in place so that it's collaborative, so that it's win-win scenarios for everybody. And I like the way you kind of think about business, right?
Yeah,
Is
it's
the fact,
definitely hard to jump on board when, things are busy, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's like the worst time to go look for a solution. Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I want
So,
to talk a little bit about the landscape of trucking right now. I want to sort of set the scene a little bit because I'm
mhm.
talking a lot about theft, a lot about fraud at the moment. I think overcapacity post-pandemic remains a bit of a challenge. What are you seeing from your perspective and that of your customers right now?
Yes, I think you could probably tie the increased theft and fraud, somewhat to the post-pandemic overcapacity, or at least draw a correlation because, as you talk about often, probably the pandemic sent like a tidal wave, right, of
Hmm.
capacity
Yes.
out there that, we just didn't have at the time. And we all thought the world was going to change, right? Direct to
Mhm.
consumer, no more retail shopping. Everything's going to be e-commerce. It's going to go from less than 50% to almost 100%. And it happened for like 18 months. And so everybody went out and loaded up on capacity for that new model that we thought was coming, and then somewhere between 21 and 22, everything snapped back. Everybody went
Yeah.
back to kind of like their old purchasing habits, their old shopping habits. And that wave of capacity was just crashing down on the shore
Right.
and, kind of wiped everything out. And so what happens is, rates get really low. The people that have thousands of units, they're just trying to run the units that they have. So they put the rates really low. And then that makes, the one-off guys or the guys with smaller fleets or gals with smaller fleets, they're more vulnerable.
Mhm.
So then, they're more vulnerable. And then I think the bad players feed on that, right? So,
Mhm.
they take advantage where they're stealing motor carrier numbers and stealing full loads, or, the train stops somewhere and they break in to the containers. And, that, I think with the economy, where it is today and, the capacity issues that we're having, that people steal more, for lack of a better expression.
Well, and I
So,
think it's a bit of a recipe, right?
yes.
Not that theft and fraud, none of us really want that because obviously there's a lot of capital costs around it as well.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of companies that are working towards, helping to mitigate that. But you're right. And painting the picture in the fact that, everything was going one way and then it got snapped back almost like a rubber band. That's the first time I've ever heard that before. But it's a really good analogy because, like, we
Totally.
stretched it and stretched it and stretched it and stretched it, and then all of a sudden, boop, and it went
Exactly.
back to sort of how it was. Things may have changed a little bit, but not on the scale that I think everybody thought it was going to. And we've really seen the effects in your industry and in the trucking industry over the last, year or so. I'm hoping that by the end of 2024, going into 2025, things are going to shift maybe a little bit, maybe normalize back to
Mhm.
pre-pandemic, hopefully, so that we can, kind of stop talking about this too. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I know
I
everybody
know,
wants to see a little bit of
post
relief.
pandemic. Yeah, totally. It's, we hope, somebody, I was talking to a customer this morning on the way in, and it was like, we do a lot of trucking with them. And we're just like, man, I think we were having this discussion the same month last year. Like next year, it's
Right.
going to be so much better than it is right now. And it was like deja vu. I was like, I think it was the same day, the same time, you know. So we're hopeful, very hopeful.
Good, good, good. So let's talk about that because we've had enough of the challenges. We want to talk about the opportunities as well. And I just read that US Mexico trade hit a record $415 billion through the first half of 2024. And I know that you mentioned TSG is based on Southern California, North Texas sort of transport corridor. What's your take on what's happening and where things are going with that cross-border trade, with the opportunities and, hopefully continuing to uplift the community?
I'm I'm really excited about it, right? Because of our proximity to Mexico in both
Mhm.
locations. It's there's a lot of opportunity there. You can just kind of feel it, especially in Texas. I mean, oh my gosh, every time I go to our location there, I mean, it's like the energy around, from Laredo up to North Texas is just like I feel like every day we're talking about new opportunities with different customers.
Wow.
Um, and I think they call it nearshoring, right? Where they're
Mhm.
putting factories in Mexico and
Yeah.
then they're going to distribute up into the US. And Texas, as you know, doesn't mess around. Like they've got that corridor, they've had the foresight, they've really built the infrastructure out.
Mhm.
California, I mean, we have some great border crossings here. Two potentially great opportunities there. We just got to make them bigger so we can get more throughput in and out
Mhm.
of there. I think that's the biggest holdup here. Texas isn't really having that challenge. And the other opportunity in Texas is the train comes from Mexico into Texas, right?
Oh, okay.
So then from there it goes out to the rest of the country or stays in Texas because Texas for the last 2 or 3 years is the fastest growing state. I mean, it's about to catch California. It's going to catch California within 12 to 24 months in economic
Wow.
terms.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So with the nearshoring happening, yeah, we're really excited about it. I mean, we're seeing parts of it start to happen in our Texas location.
Mhm.
Not so much in California. I think a lot of that stuff stays south of Los Angeles, and then gets redistributed from there. So, but definitely exciting stuff. You can see the growth happening, and it's like a line. You can when you look at the railroads and the development for the warehouses and so forth, it's like a line that goes like from, you know, Monterey, Mexico, like straight up to Chicago, right? And
Wow.
and then as you know, Chicago's kind of for now is kind of like the heart of the railroad intermodal industry, right? Everything has to
Right.
come and go through Chicago because the way the founding members of the railroad set it up. Like you can't go past this point, you can't go past that point.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I just recently did a show about Mexico, and
Awesome.
how Tupperware was leaving their manufacturing, I believe, in South Carolina and moving that to Mexico. And then they were talking about a few other brands like Mondelez and a few more looking at Mexico, moving manufacturing into Mexico. So you're right, there is a lot of opportunity there. A couple of questions around some challenges. I know I'm going to bring those up. I know we were just talking about opportunities, but also labor, right? They need to have enough people there to be able to
Hmm.
man the manufacturing facilities, the warehouses, et cetera. I think that might be one
Yeah, I think you're
concern.
right. I think that's going to be Mexico's biggest challenge because it's not only
Yeah.
the US companies that are going, I mean, it's, you know, some things that are
European,
happening to get around
yeah,
tariffs and
Asian.
so forth from Asia. They're moving a lot of,
Yeah.
manufacturing base to Mexico as well. And,
Hmm.
that's a lot in a short amount of time for, a labor force to handle.
Yeah, it really is. And so you're really trying to help fleets sort of maximize their potential, right? So let's talk about the services that are helping them. Can you give us an overview of your terminal operation solutions, the systems you have in play, and how they're helping brands to optimize their logistics processes?
Sure. Yes. I mean, the best way to do it is probably just walk you through a typical in-gate, out-gate process,
Let's
because
do
then
it.
that's where everything happens, right? So whether it's one of our trucks or a customer's truck, they come through our automated gate system. And this, it has image recognition software, so it picks up,
Wow.
what truck it is,
Mhm.
what chassis number it is, container number, or if it's just a trailer, it just picks up the trailer number. And it identifies the customer based on, the unit number usually. So when it comes in, it gets logged into our yard management system. And then depending on your fleet, right? We have highway fleets, we have intermodal fleets, we have, chassis providers. They all have their own little, maintenance protocol that we have to do. Some people don't want any maintenance, which is fine. You
Mhm.
can just park here until you need to get to go where you're going. But then it'll flag it in our system, what it needs, if it needs anything. So if it comes in and you don't need any of our services, it just comes in, it gets listed as ready because it's, if you're going to sign on the customer end of the portal, you'll see, okay, my unit's there, it's ready. You can see when it checked in, how it checked in,
Hmm.
what driver brought it in. You have all those images on our portal online. And if you're a fleet that needs services, and we have your protocol in our system, it'll walk you through the entire process. So when it gets here, it'll go down as not inspected, and then our service team will know that they need to get out and do their multi-point inspection on that
Okay.
unit, and they go do that. And then, they have a tablet, so they're online as well. So as they go through the inspection, they update it to its ready status. The customer can sign in, and see their fleet go from not inspected to bad order, or there's an estimate pending or whatever it is, until it's finally what we call green tag. Because back in the day, we actually bought these green tags, and
Yeah.
you would somehow get it on the trailer or the chassis. They have little wire tags on them. Fortunately, we don't have those anymore, because like green tags and red tags would just litter our terminals, but now
Right.
it's all on the system. And so, then the customer knows that, what's ready, what's not ready, and then they
Mhm.
can create reports on there, and download it, and then send it out to their dispatch and say, these units are ready to go. You know, we do that through EDI. Some customers require EDI, so we have that capability as well. That's all in our yard management system. And, we found that doing it that way compared to the old way, which I'll tell you really quickly, because it's kind of funny, you know, we'd take pictures with a digital camera, we'd write up a work order, uh, and then we'd have a separate estimate, and then we'd download that all into an email and send it out to a customer. And
To
then
be
we'd wait for
approved? Do they have
to be
to,
approved. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
have to approve
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And,
Got
and
it.
I don't want to bash it, because I know in some places that still exists, and if
Mhm.
you can do it, that's great. As you increase volume, right, you're always looking for efficiency and better throughput. So this
Yeah.
digital process really helps, and they don't have to wait on an email. Like, they can literally sign on, their team wherever they're at, and just look and see what they have and what's available to use in their network.
Well, and you mentioned maintenance and repair. So if that, like, if they let you know that that unit needs maintenance and repair, or do you let them know?
It goes both ways. So they can
Okay.
flag the unit in our system
Uh-huh.
as something that they need to check. So perfect example is, let's say the train's coming in from Chicago, and there's a refrigeration unit on the train, and it's shut down for some reason.
Got it.
Well, the customer would see that in their system. We necessarily wouldn't, but then they'll go into our system and create a flag, and they'll flag it. So as soon as it gets off the train, it gets here, we fix it, get it back up and running, and then send it on to get unloaded and hopefully avoid a claim.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if there's maintenance and repair that you need to do, that trailer is marked red until you do the maintenance and repair, and then it turns green in the system.
Mhm.
I'm just trying
Yes.
to
Yeah,
get
no,
a
yeah, you're
handle on
right.
it.
And I think the other important part is, I mean, a lot of units, there's a DOT standard, right? That a unit
Mhm.
has to be roadworthy. And that's the
Right.
basis of all that, right? You can't send it out with a brake light that doesn't work, or missing
Got
a
it.
mud flap, uh, flat tires, all kinds of stuff that, the tire tread, it needs to be checked before it goes again.
So they really rely on you then, because at the end of the day, if they are sitting in another part of the country and it's going into your facilities, they're relying on you to check everything on that trailer to make sure that it is roadworthy, and for you to flag it and say, no, we need to do this, this, and this before you can actually pick it up.
Yes, that's
Love that.
correct.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
And then also, part of the services that you provide is 24/7 storage. I think you said that earlier. You went
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
not being 24/7 to getting the call on Mother's Day and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I think we need to be 24/7." Talk to us about that. Like, what type of storage do you offer? Who's it for? Where is it? And how do you make sure that you're combating that rising issue of security and theft that we sort of talked about earlier?
Yeah, so we offer a few different types of storage. Obviously we started with trucks and trailers, and now we're into we stack containers. Chassis. We're a chassis depot for some of the biggest chassis companies in the country. And from that, we've morphed into other things, out of gauge, big equipment that doesn't need to be in a warehouse, right? It just needs to be set down outside with a big container lift and wait
Mhm.
till it gets sold or gets installed, like a commercial AC unit. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like a 40-foot container size, you know, device or, thing. And then, we can lift them on and off with like a container lift or a heavy duty forklift and set them down. And then the hospital that they're building needs it, we can do that.
Wow.
That's still a very small percentage of our business. It's a growing part of our business. 95% of it is, you know, trucks, trailers, chassis, containers. And we offer, we've learned, right? You traditionally, when you have off-peak and on-peak freight seasons, which we really haven't seen a very traditional one yet for a few years, but we're
Mhm.
hoping. A lot of the equipment providers store thousands of containers during off-peak, right? So they're
Right.
just looking for the least expensive option. So we find locations that are, within an hour. So for example, I don't know how much you know about California geography, the high desert here, so the Adelanto area,
Mhm.
there's tens of thousands of containers up there during off peak because they're
Oh,
not
wow.
using them, right? And then
Right.
as on peak comes on, we take them out of storage. The real estate's less expensive there. The cost to operate's less expensive. It's a little bit longer drive to bring them back into service, but you're paying less than half the
Right.
cost to store it as opposed to somewhere near us in Ontario, California.
Mhm.
We try and keep these for wheeled storage and truck parking
Yeah.
specifically, just because it's more transitional. There's a lot more movement here. There's a lot more maintenance here. Those
Right.
containers, they're just 10 boxes. They don't need a bid
Right.
inspection. You know, when we put them in stack, we take pictures and inspect them to make sure there's not going to be water getting into them and stuff like that. But nothing like a trailer, especially a refrigerated
Mhm.
trailer or a refrigerated container.
Mhm.
Those are the wheeled spaces that we do here at these
Mm.
locations, um,
So you're
here
very
and in Texas.
you're very intentional about where you are putting which product.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want a bunch of dry boxes that are only going to be used for like a 6 month period, getting in the way of the people who are using refrigerated equipment, for example,
Right.
all year round, right?
So true. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Refrigerated equipment, they don't really flex peak and off peak.
Mhm.
It's our food. So we're always
Yeah.
eating it,
Yeah, and we always need those reefers.
yeah. And then to your question about 24/7 security. So we have the automatic gate system, right? You can't come
Yeah.
in and out without going through that. Well, you could if you broke in through a fence. Everything's fenced, everything's lit.
Mhm.
I can look right up here and see a bunch of our facilities, including shops on a CCTV camera. Um, so, and we have people monitoring that
Yeah.
all the time, looking for any suspicious activity.
Mhm.
For example, when someone comes in a vehicle, like they can't just come into our yard because the system doesn't recognize them, right? So they have to
Right.
call and ask.
So
Every
true.
once in a while, someone comes in, drives around, and we have people here all day, all night. And so they flag them down like, "Are you okay? What are you looking for?" It's usually an Uber driver looking for a truck driver to take them somewhere.
Another
But
driver.
it's like they get in and like for here in California, in Southern California, our main facility, the driver's lounge is on the front part of the property and they just go right
Mm.
past it. And then they're back in
Right,
the
right,
back
right.
where all the maintenance and shop is, and everybody's like, "Who's this person? What are they doing?" And
Right,
we get them in the right spot. So it's
right.
hard to get in and out of here without being noticed.
But security is top of mind for you, which is good to know, right?
Oh
Especially if
yeah.
you're doing the storage.
Especially, if you want to have a good insurance policy, which all the major private fleets require you to have, like the, they vet that very well. So
Mhm.
if something does happen, you're insured, right? So there's that component as well.
Right, right, right. So I know you've given us a few examples, but I'd like for us to bring this all to life with a case study. Do you have an example of a customer who utilized maybe one or all of your services, and what was the benefit or ROI that they saw from working with you? Because I can already tell by bringing all of these solutions together in one place, it makes things so much more efficient and they can do so much more. But I'd like to hear some like the benefits and ROI that customers have shared with you.
Yes. I mean, I think the most important one is like for our food supply. I
Mhm.
think traditionally, let's go back 20 years. carriers would just use like a dirt drop lot somewhere, and they didn't have telematic devices. They depended on their network of drivers to check on units to make sure the refrigeration unit was running.
Right.
And then it became more sophisticated, and we're able to monitor, the temperature setting, the fuel levels. And so we do that in our locations where we have refrigerated carriers. And I mean, that's the first thing customers realize, right? We're here 24/7. So if that thing, we don't even let it, like when you sign our depot agreement, you agree that if it gets below a quarter of a tank in fuel, we're going to go out there and fuel it and charge you,
Okay.
because we don't want to get in a back and forth of like, oh, do you think it'll last for 5 or 6 more hours until the
Right.
reefer unit goes out, and then the frozen beef thaws and rots,
Yeah.
um, so that right there, that saves carriers tens of thousands of dollars, because, there's no inexpensive refrigerated cargo. Like it's
Hmm.
all pretty expensive stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, the other benefit that, we get a lot is, you can often avoid road service with us, especially
Okay.
for I mean, if your truck's engine blows up, there's really nothing we can do to help you out to make your next appointment. Um, Brake lights, mud flaps, little things that, they would call one of the big truck stop companies, to come out and do the maintenance and repair. It could take hours. So then they miss their next
Right.
appointment, which usually becomes a domino effect, right?
Hmm.
And fleets are huge on service, right? They all want to be in transport topics, be at the top of the list for service. And that affects their service rating, right? Every day,
Right.
you just it's kind of like flights, right? You get stuck behind and then it never catches up.
Hmm.
Um, so we're able to do those minor repairs to keep them running, right? If they come in and there's a container on a chassis and the brake light's out, we're here, we've got brake lights,
Hmm.
we're partners with the chassis company as well. We can pop a new brake light in there and get them on their way. They don't miss an appointment. They don't have to wait for the third party service provider to come. So those are all little minor issues that happen that cause big delays that effectively cost money.
Well, it builds up, right? You can just sort of see a little thing after little
Oh
thing.
yeah,
And
and a
also,
mobile service will wipe out the profitability in an intermodal load. Like we're talking like $500 lanes, right? So you're
right.
probably making at best $100. So if you've got to get mobile service, that's $350 just for them to show up,
Yeah.
right? From
Yeah.
wherever they came.
But I think about like in our personal life on a regular basis, when you
Oh,
wake up in the morning and like one thing happens and then another thing happens and it sort of like
oh yeah,
piles up and you just get irritated
totally.
by
I
the
had one of
end
those
of the
mornings. It all
day.
morphed into the microphone not working when I got here and everything. So,
No, but I can see that for an operator,
mhm.
knowing that they have somebody like you involved, somebody that they can rely on to be like, let's change this out, let's do this, let's do that, that decreases the level of irritation
Yeah,
that an operator would have that would necessarily have to be on top of all these things. So I just wanted to put that into perspective because that alone to me, if I can reduce irritability in any of my operators, my staff, my
totally. So in
professionals,
other
I
markets
mean,
or other companies that do not use TSG, to your point exactly, imagine coming in and something's not working in your fleet and there's no one there to help you, right?
right,
So then you've got to call, hopefully it's only one thing, right? So you've got to
right,
call that service provider and they got to come and do that one thing. If it's two things, you're waiting on two people before you can even start your day.
right.
And I think we eliminate a lot of that stress here, right?
Yeah.
Because we can kind of do a little bit of everything. And if you need to get that truck going and leave that there, we can bring in one of our trucks and finish that load per se.
You are eliminating stress across the industry. I love that. We might need to use that for the title. Anyways, looking into the future real quick, what are your predictions for the industry? What's to come for TSG?
I still think it's fairly unpredictable. I think there's a dim light at the end of the tunnel. I mentioned earlier, I was talking to a customer on the way in
Mhm.
today, and we were laughing because I was like, didn't we have this conversation 12 months ago
Right.
about things picking up and everything getting better in our industry? Um, until these capacity issues work themselves out, whether that's a big company going out of business, like a yellow freight situation. I mean, it's
Mhm.
unfortunate for all the employees. Um, Otherwise, that's something that has to happen in our capitalistic system, right? When
Mhm.
when you have too much capacity in any industry, any market, things have to change. Either demand has to go up significantly, where I really don't see that happening anytime soon in our, in trucking or in all its related industries. I think it's going to be more the other thing, where people are going to get into a credit crunch for all the equipment they bought, or,
Right.
someone that we don't know right now is just going to bite the bullet and close their doors. And, because I don't know, I track a lot of metrics, and like the rate of which motor carriers are closing their door today is insane. Now it's the smaller ones. It's just, I mean, it's hundreds a month, right? So it's
Right.
dozens a week, and they're just tossing in the towel and leaving,
Mhm.
which that's going to help, right? Because that capacity's got to be picked up somewhere.
Right.
Um, and then going back to the whole thing of nearshoring through Mexico, and hopefully the combination of that and the capacity thing working itself out. Maybe there's a balance there between the extra capacity being needed once these, factories that they're
Right.
building down in Mexico come online. And,
Mhm.
then, especially in the intermodal business, that's how all that gets here, right? There's not enough
Yeah.
truckers to move all that stuff across the border.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
Well, and I think TSG is going to be there to help innovate and be that reliable partner moving forward, sort of no matter what happens, right?
Yes, totally. We're going to be here. Yes, for
So,
sure.
so in today's fast-paced world of commerce, efficient logistics are the backbone of successful businesses. Whether you're a manufacturer, distributor, or retailer, having access to reliable storage and transportation solutions is crucial for maintaining the flow of goods. And so is keeping a fleet of vehicles running smoothly, efficiently, and safely. So, TSG Fleets is the partner you need with industrial storage facilities, a team of highly skilled technicians, and a range of trucking terminal services. TSG is your one stop shop for success. So, did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you. Today's guest works with over 25% of America's largest private fleets. But according to a recent survey, what percentage of America's freight by weight is transported by trucking fleets? Well, it's 72.5%. And that was a horrible drum roll. That is over three quarters. So brands really need to focus on keeping those trucks secure and on the move. If you want to find out more, you can check them out at tsgfleet.com. If you'd like to hear more from us, we have plenty more content for you featuring the best and brightest in the industry. So head over to letstalksupplychain.com to find out more. Trace, thank you so much for joining me on the show today and for making this episode happen.
Awesome. It was great to be here. I appreciate it.